7 o'clock. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and I'll call the Board of Supervisors regular meeting to order, or for April the 14th meeting. And call the roll, please, for attendance.
Mr. Hunter,
Here.
Mr. Carmichael,
Here.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mrs. Waymack, Mrs. Waymack,
Mrs. Waymack, they're calling the roll, ma'am.
Here electronically.
All right, and could you tell me where you are, your home address?
Yes, I am.
Okay, is that all we needed, Dan?
Just if she could state if it's for a medical reason or
No.
personal reason.
All right, you're absent for a medical reason, correct?
That is correct. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, thank you. Is that all you need, sir?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
and Mr. Webb.
Here. We've had a roll now. If I could, Mr. Brad, if you'd lead us in any invocation, please. Yes, sir.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening just to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to see another day, a day that we've never seen before. Heavenly Father, we also come to you just thanking you for wrapping your loving arms of protection around us to help protect us all from this COVID-19 pandemic. Heavenly Father, again, we know that we need to put our trust and faith in you, and that you will help get us through this situation, and that we're going to come out on the other side of this, Heavenly Father. And we all know that due to this pandemic, normal will take on a whole different definition. Heavenly Father, we also ask you this evening to bless all of our firefighters, the EMS, the police, all of our county staff, and also, Heavenly Father, all of the citizens and residents here in Prince George County. Heavenly Father, we also ask you to watch over our county administrator as he works and leads and guides this county each and every day. Heavenly Father, we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Mr. Carmichael, would you lead us in our pledge to the flag?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. As Mr. Brown just mentioned, normal takes a whole new meaning. So as we work through the agenda tonight, everyone could bear with us as we have this new adventure. Public comments is next on the agenda.
we have one.
We have one public comment, and Mr. Steele, would you give your name and address, please, sir?
Very good. Good evening. William Steele, County Line Road. Very quickly, gentlemen, I will not be as long as I was last time. Gentlemen, tonight, and ladies, Ms. Womack, good evening. We're going to be talking about the county tax rate. I did a survey of all the counties in Richmond, the Richmond region of the 15 counties, and I learned through my research that Prince George County is the 4th highest tax county in the region. The 4th highest tax. Why is that? I then decided to go start looking at the expenditures that the county has on the county website that's public information, and I was stunned at what I saw. It may not be fraud, but there is waste and abuse here. For instance, is the board looking at that? Do you gentlemen and ladies, do you look at this expenditure sheet ever? $17,000 for Christmas decorations? How does that benefit the taxpayer? That's a lot of money that I see wasted. Let's look at wireless services. $123,000 for cell phone, a high of $3,000 a month by the police department, when other departments are only doing $21 a month. Why that vast difference? Why is there such a difference in that expenditure there? Cable TV services. The fire departments, some of the fire departments are paying $528 a month for cable TV. I don't pay that much. I can't even afford cable TV. And yet the taxpayer is paying that much? Meals. I am stunned. It's got to be great to be a county employee in this county. The amount of money that we spend on meals, $22,000. Now, this isn't travel meals that you have to pay for per diem. Got that. These are award meals, banquet meals. And Luca must love you guys because you spent a fortune at Luca's. Gentlemen, that's fraud, waste, and abuse. This has got to stop. Who's running this county? When I open up the county website, it says taxpayer, board of directors, board of supervisors, and the county bureaucrats. Obviously, the county bureaucrats are overshooting you guys, running roughshod on you, and it's us taxpayers that's paying for it. This has got to stop, folks. And this will either stop, or there'll be letters being sent to the Commonwealth Attorney of the state of Virginia asking them to look at this for this fraud, waste, and abuse. And even worse, we'll notify the TV stations and say, hey, you need to come down here to Prince George County and find out why we are wasting so much money. Mr. Carmichael, I'm going to ask if you would consider putting a motion in to the administration tonight and demand that they present to you a decrement list. Cut the budget by 5%, 7%, and 9%. And with all due respect, Mr. Ashcraft, if that means going into personnel, so be it. Other people are cutting, we're cutting waste for overstaffing. This county's fat and overstaffed, and we've got to do something. The people can't afford to keep paying these high taxes. We should be embarrassed that Prince George County is the 4th highest tax county in the 15-county region. How's that for quick? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we still have public comments. I think we only had one person signed up and come forward. And is that all we have, Mr. Stowe?
That's it.
Okay. Have no other public comments. We'll move to the adoption of the agenda. Entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have any discussion? You hear us all right, Ms. Wayrack? Having a motion and a second, with no discussion, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Wayback,
yes,
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the consensus agenda, the order of consensus. If no one has any changes with the consensus agenda, I entertain a motion to accept the consensus agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Wayback,
yes,
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes?
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Next, we have no actual presentations, so next is the supervisor's comments. Mr. Carmichael, any comments there?
I just want to commend everyone that's been providing services to the county citizens. I have heard no complaints about people trying to get in touch with the right department and not get the attention needed. So in times that we're going through, I appreciate everybody's being in attendance and being available to the citizens.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Webb?
I concur with Mr. Carmichael, especially EMS. I know EMS is running an extremely large amount of calls in this time and working a lot of hours. So hats off to all of them, keeping everybody safe.
Thank you. Brad?
Yes, just to all of our citizens and residents, thank you for adhering to all of the different things that are out there, asking you to stay at home or asking you for social distancing, and continue to follow the directions that's being put out, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. And just thank you to all of the county employees, and even though the building is not necessarily open to the public, they're still continuing to get the job done each and every day.
Very nice. Yes, I agree with all those things. And also have to say, applaud the folks in the county, our county government, and everyone involved for the fact that they are being safe out there. And that's what it's all about, being safe and not necessarily looking out for yourself, but looking out for everyone else. And at this point in time, there's 27 cases that have been qualified or certified in our county of over 37,000. So I don't think that's bad. And I'm sorry for those 27, but I think we're doing very well, and let's hope that we can get it down to a minimum. Mr. Ashby.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board, those that are watching on YouTube Live, we're thankful that you're with us. If I might, you have my report in front of you. I'm not going to cover a lot of the details, except I would like to go into some of the coronavirus issues, just so we can continue to follow and understand the impacts that's happening in our county, and particularly in our region. The chairman mentioned there are 27 reported cases in Prince George. That is according to the state website. The statistics that have been reported locally in the Crater Health District has us at 26. We're not sure where the gap is there, but that's as of just a few minutes ago. There's 27 reported cases, and the Times Dispatch reported late this afternoon that there was a death at Fort Lee of a civilian employee who works at Kenner Hospital. Usually deaths are not reported. I don't know how the news media was able to do that. The name was not part of that, but it was reported that death came out of Fort Lee. So we certainly, that was a statistic that I assume will be with Prince George County. So our condolences to their families and that family of that individual. And we'll continue to try to give out as much information to the public as possible. We know it's frustrating because people would like to know what neighborhoods cases are being identified in, and certainly other facts, and people have a right to really want to know that. But we can only report what the health district and even the governor and his health team allows us to report. And we're doing that in numerous ways, through our website, through our social media, through press releases, and any personal contact that somebody wants to call by telephone and they have a question about anything, we'll try to explain and be as transparent as possible. But we do thank the citizens for their efforts. I believe what they've done has really been tremendous, and we really have to continue to do that if we're going to climb out of this thing. Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to touch base on, as you know, there are numerous people throughout our county and throughout the country that are unemployed today because of this virus. And as statistics as recent as April the 4th, we had 656 new unemployment claims. Those are folks that have never been on the docket before, and they will be receiving benefits. And along with that, we had 255 new applications for social services benefits. SNAP, which we all know formerly as the food benefits, Medicaid, and then your TANF benefits. And we want to remind people that are on those benefits, if they happen to be watching this evening, is there are numerous scams around that people are trying to intercept your benefits when they're sent to you. So be careful with that when you're receiving your benefits and how you go to use them. The food bank has been a center of attention the last couple of weeks because there are a large number of people who are utilizing that facility that have never used it before. People are having to make decisions, as it's been said, about how to get food versus maybe paying a utility bill or some other encumbered obligation that they might have. Anyone who would like to donate to the food bank, they will accept those donations on Tuesdays and Friday mornings from 7:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then the food bank opens at 10 a.m. and stays open until 12 o'clock noon. Again, at 7:30 to 10 for donations, 10 to 12 to pick up any inventory that they might have to give you groceries for the week. We want to continue to keep that stocked, and our government employees have taken that on as an obligation this week to try to at least get the food bank through 2 or 3 weeks of inventory. We have also reached out to the Brighter Living facility. We all have heard and seen and read the horrifying news that have come out of some nursing facilities just in Henrico County and even throughout other parts of the state. I understand Colonial Heights now has 2 deaths in one of their facilities. We would like to obviously be absent of any of those numbers. So even though a portion of that facility is in Prince George County, we partner with Hopewell to want to make sure every one of those 85 patients are as safe as possible. Our chairman took some gowns, and that we've communicated to others to handle some hand sanitizer over there so that we could begin to meet some of the low supplies that they've had. And we'll continue to do all those things as we can as a government. Businesses are struggling. We know that. They're going to continue to struggle because they're not open, and we don't know when they're going to be open. That would be a federal debate that'll fall down in the hands of the governor and other, even the General Assembly possibly might have a stake in all that. But there are programs out there for their help and assistance. I would ask you to contact the county administration. We'll hook you up with the phone numbers and the sources for where grant applications can be made. And as a result, it may bring some short-term relief to businesses that are certainly in need of them. We understand at Richard Bland College, and we have a number of students in Prince George who go to that higher education facility, that they're offering rebates to students because of the pandemic and not being able to finish their semester the way that they would like. They are offering some assistance with that. And one thing that was particularly of interest, gentlemen and Mrs. Waymack, Virginia State, Virginia Tech did a study in the last week or so measuring the effectiveness of county and city governments to be able to handle the issues related to the pandemic financially. And Prince George County was ranked as the 10th best locality, and that includes cities, in the state to have a balanced and diversified financial situation to where we're going to be able to absorb the pain that comes from a failure to collect certain revenues or to see things that aren't being falling into place as they normally would. You know, studies are studies and statistics are numbers, but it does, I think, gentlemen, should give you some level of comfort that you have through your budgetary decisions and through the deliberations that we have 12 months out of the year, that even though we know we still have to take precautions, we still have to safeguard all spending measures and keep a close eye on the revenue, that as we rank next to other localities in this county, or excuse me, this Commonwealth, you stand 10th best, excuse me, sixth best from the top in being prepared. I compliment you for that. I certainly compliment Betsy and her staff. That is something we're proud of the distinction. We have a lot of work to do, and we recognize that. And Mr. Chairman, finally, the Crater Health District is sending out what they call a health alert that answers many questions about the virus and the importance of social distancing, contact tracing. You're hearing that phrase a lot about people who have been in touch with people. We have some copies of that out on the table, out by the boardroom. We'll continue to keep those there. It's on our website, and that's good reading for people who have questions about how to trace folks as they are close to people. That seems to be a big question right now. Or if I'm one person removed or two person removed, how exposed am I? I believe this information will help explain some of that. But really, the best thing that you can do is to contact your physician if you think you're having symptoms, and then they will walk you through the process for testing, and ultimately, hopefully, they will not have the virus. Again, Mr. Chairman, the rest of my report you find there. If there's any questions from anyone, I'll be happy to respond to them. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ashcraft, just want to mention one thing. You talked about the loss of the Fort Lee person. So that's not necessarily a Prince George person, even though Fort Lee is in Prince George, that person may reside somewhere else. So that doesn't necessarily tell you that Prince George has had a loss of life due to the virus.
Thanks for explaining that. I think that happened early on as
Yes.
well. So, yes, sir, that's correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to have some comments.
And I apologize because I jumped right over top of you, and you certainly always
That's-
have something good to say, especially at this time of season situation. So, Ms. Waymack, if you would.
Yes, I would just like to mention the thanks to our medical workers and all of our first responders who've been on the front line during this terrible time. And encourage everybody to continue with the conditions that we need to do, social distancing, hand washing, all the things that you've heard about. They're very important, even though it seems simple. So we hope that we will get through this. Our ancestors have been through things like this, but we never have. So, we ask for the protection of our God in this and do the best we can. Thank you for all our wonderful Prince George folks.
Thank you for that, Ms. Waymack, and I again apologize for neglecting you and not asking for your comments because they're always very important. Right?
That's quite all right. I'm not there. It's working.
Y'all don't let me do it again. So, all right, so we're moving on.
Mr. Chairman, before we do VDOT.
I was gonna say, we asked Ms. Smith if she would give us her report, please.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. In regards to the coronavirus, our leadership has taken our employees' safety very serious as well. Similar to Prince George County, we've incorporated many safety measures. One of the big things I would like to let everyone know is that all of our offices, including our area headquarters, are closed to the public. We would ask anyone needing to speak to someone at the residency level or want to meet in person to contact our 1-800-4ROAD number, and that way they can get in touch with us and we can work directly with the citizen that way. I appreciate Mr. Ashcraft making it possible for me to conference in tonight, and I've got quite a few things, so I'm going to go ahead and get started and try to run through them pretty quickly. All of our scheduled contracts are underway, including our slurry seal, surface treatment, and plant mix. Crews will be working in Templeton Estates, Wildwood Farms, and Huckleberry Hills this week. The Route 460 at Full Hill Road intersection improvement project is really starting to get ramped up this week. Their fixed completion date is November of 2020. Our on-call patching contractor is currently doing significant patching along Hines Road. We're also currently working on a task order to have some additional patching done on North Normandy. Our district-wide tree trimming contract has completed tree trimming in Prince George County, and they're now working on spraying a broadleaf growth inhibitor. Our on-call ditching contractor has started on Providence Road. They are going to ditch that road from Route 36 to Reams Road. We're also going to move to Spain Drive once Providence is complete, and they'll be working on Spain Drive from Dinwiddie County line to Tartan. Our sweeper vac is expected to start in the next few weeks. Our spray injection machine is working in Prince George this week, and then they'll return again on May 11th. This time of year, we would typically be looking at preparing for a secondary 6-year plan. Prince George County, at this time, I don't anticipate adding any additional projects, though there will be some additional funds in the out years that will have to be allocated. So we'll have to have some discussions about that in the coming months. I'm going to, probably recommend that all the additional funding go to the roundabout at Middle and Jefferson. That'll be up for the board's, decision on where those funds will go. And a public hearing can be held pretty much at any time during the year because your current plan is approved until 2025, but we will want to get those additional funds allocated. In the meantime, they'll be sitting in a balance entry account until we can hold a public hearing on that. Also in the coming months, we'll want to talk about how we want to spend our safety funds that are currently available. Some options that I'll be presenting will be some trench widening along Route 156, possibly adding a turn lane from Ruffin to Route 10, or doing a corridor study along Route 460. That's all I have for tonight, so if you have any questions or comments.
All right, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Brandon?
Just one comment. Mrs. Smith, I just had just a couple of complaints on, you're probably maybe using multiple contractors to do your road improvements, but over near the Butler Branch area, Providence area, hope that they're filling these potholes correctly before they're resurfacing the roads, because a couple of citizens said that when they addressed some of the issues with the contractors, the answer they got is we were just told to resurface, but what they're doing is going through potholes and putting the overlay right into the pothole, that's filled with mud and water without first filling the pothole correctly before resurfacing the road.
Yeah, that shouldn't be happening. So that's on Butler Branch Road.
Between Butler Branch and Providence, it happened within a week and a half when you had a crew over there. The foreman of the crew came by and saw what the citizens were talking about and sent another crew out there to fix that one problem. But his statement was, we were told just to resurface the road, not to fill in the potholes. So just as long as that's mentioned, that's fine.
Yes, I'll have a discussion with the contractor. There's an inspector that should be on site as well. Of course, he's covering multiple crews, so I'll talk to him as well, make sure we're making sure those potholes are being patched.
Yeah, that's all they asked. Appreciate it.
Ms. Waymack, you have any comments?
No, I have none, thank you.
Okay, and I see that they painted lines on Jefferson Park today, and I think they're doing some others as well, I heard. So that's a good thing.
Yes, and one other thing I did forget to mention is the mumble strips.
Yes.
They started on those and didn't quite get finished due to the rain, but we're expecting those to finish up sometime this week, possibly through this weekend. And then it'll be about 2 more weeks, the crew will come back in and put the snowplow markers in.
Wonderful. That's great. People have been longing for that for a couple of years. That's a good job. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, very much. We appreciate you calling in.
Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you have a couple of minutes before your public hearing is to take place. Could we go to item A2? And Chief Early is going to present that.
Okay, item A2. Okay, that's under tab 12.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ms. Ashcraft, Mr. Whitmore.
Make sure you're speaking to the mic if you would, sir. There you go. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that Ms. Wayback can hear you.
Good evening, Ms. Waymack.
And good evening.
Making sure. Members of the board, I'm here today, or this evening, requesting authorization to apply for a Virginia Port Authority grant to purchase new twin Mercury 200 horsepower outboard engines for our current police marine vessel. Our current vessel is a 24-foot Boston Whaler, was purchased back in 2005. The engines on it are original engines to the vessel. They're 15 years of age. They are aging. We see this as a potential opportunity to save the county money. We actually had a proposal to request authorization to apply for grant for a new boat, which is a much higher price tag. Considering the current situation we're in, we thought this would be a more reasonable request, considering the times, and would also serve our purpose. In the issue analysis form that may be in front of you, we put a not to exceed of $50,000 to cover the expense and installation of 2 motors. Since my submission of this form, we've gotten a quote, and in fact, would be $38,000 for the twin engines and installation. And this grant, should we be successful in acquiring this grant, requires a 25% match, which would put the county expense at $9,500. We've also looked into sale of our current motor, should we be successful in this grant. And we would expect, NADA has them estimated private party sale of $3,500 per motor, which would be, we could expect roughly $7,000 from the sale of that motor, which would leave us, if you include that, an expense of about $2,500 for these 2 new motors. I'll also add, within the last year, maybe 2 years, on one of the motors, we had a primary control module, which is basically the brain of the engine, failed, and that was roughly between a $3,000 and $4,000 fix for that one module we had incurred. So to give you an idea of potential future expenses with the current motors that we have. And that's my request before you. Any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I'm just curious, you thinking about getting a new vessel, would these engines be something that you would use in a new vessel or no?
Probably not.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, the new vessel, this is totally outfitted. The cost of a new, the average, they say lifespan of one of these vessels is approximately 20 years. Our vessel's been well taken care of. It's got a good hull in it. The replacement cost is about $318,000 for a new vessel. 25% match for that's roughly $78,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I didn't think I'd get too many smiles if I can understand.
Well, just a question, just a curiosity. Other questions, John?
Yeah, I got one, Chief. The $2,500 you'd be left, where's that coming from?
Well, we could ask Ms. Drury, we would have that money in this current budget. If we were successful with this grant application, we wouldn't know that until September of the next fiscal year. But right now, we could absorb that in our current budget.
Other questions? No, no questions. Mr. Waymack, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, at that point, then, with that information before us, to entertain a motion to accept this resolution.
So moved, Mr. Chairman, to accept the resolution in front of us. I think that's a good shot at trying to at least get more years on the vessel that Chief has, and I know they do a lot of rescue and help with other municipalities as well, so they stay pretty busy in the time, if things should change for the good, that time of the year is coming up soon.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Based on being preventive, proactive, and maintain our assets, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just one thing, just to be
Yes,
clear, right, what we're voting on right now is giving the chief the authority to go, or permission to go and apply for the grant.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make
Yeah,
it clear. So,
permission to apply for a grant.
The deadline's 28, correct, Chief?
Deadline's at 30.
30.
Yes.
okay, that's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. That was it too. Now, we're gonna do the public hearing. All right, all right, we have a public hearing scheduled for tonight. Consideration of equalization of the tax rate based on assessment. It's on tab 22. Keep it in mind, this is merely a public hearing. Probably won't take any action on this tonight.
Actually, you don't
You know, we
need to do that with our new system.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Ray.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Ashcraft, Mr. Witt, and all gathered and assembled electronically. I'll be speaking to you, public hearing regarding equalization of our tax rate. My name is Betsy Drury, Deputy County Administrator, Finance Director. The presentation that you're seeing tonight looks a little bit different than the one that's in your book. We tried to darken the background to make it a little more legible for those that are on the YouTube channel. The board received preliminary information at its pre-budget work session on December 16th related to our assessed values, and then received an update on March 7th at a budget work session. Assessed values, excluding new construction and improvements, are projected to increase by more than 1% for our county assessor. And if the assessed values increase by more than 1%, net of new construction and improvements, the Code of Virginia dictates that the county must either reduce the tax rate so that revenues are less than or equal to 100%, 101% of prior year levies, or the county may increase the tax rate after advertising and holding a public hearing with notice of an effective tax rate increase. It's a little difficult to see on the screen, but this shows that our total assessed value, net of new construction and improvements, is 8.3%. The equalized tax rate would be 80 cents. Your current tax rate is 86 cents for $100 of assessed value. Questions before I move forward? I believe we've seen this before. There was no recommendation to reduce the current tax rate of 86 cents to the equalized rate in the proposed budget. The proposed budget called for leaving the tax rate at 86 cents. And if lowered, the impact to county and schools for each penny is about $280,000 worth of revenue. A 6% reduction in the tax rate would be a reduction of $1,680,000 in projected revenues. Staff is currently evaluating the potential impact of COVID-19 on all of our revenue streams, and our 21 real estate collections are based on assessed values as of January of 2020. So there would be no increase or no change based on COVID to those assessed values. They are set in January each year. However, COVID-19 could impact the percentage of those billed taxes that are collected and paid on time. Just to mention, our proposed budget, or Mr. Ashcraft's proposed budget, called for a $3.9 million increase, or 6.9% increase over FY20. The most significant increases in expenditures for FY21 were a $1,262,500 contribution to debt reserve for construction of a new elementary school and other county and school projects. 7 additional general fund positions were proposed, totaling just over $503,000. 3 of those were public safety related. There was also a proposed increase in the operating transfer to schools of over $222,000. Increases needed for technology, software contracts, and hardware of nearly $163,000. And then an increase to Riverside Regional Jail contribution would increase by nearly $157,000. Of course, all of these are subject to change as the board evaluates expenditures as we move through our upcoming budget work sessions. Staff did receive authority to advertise this public hearing on March 10th, and it was advertised in the March 13th, 14th edition, Friday, Saturday edition. There is no board action requested following this public hearing, and staff will be requesting the authority to advertise a public hearing at a future board meeting. This, of course, was delayed from tonight's meeting. We will request authority to advertise the tax rates and hold a public hearing at your direction. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to restate what I stated the last meeting. I honestly think we need to have some work sessions and work through this list and see what else we can do. I'm not comfortable at where we're standing right now. I stated that to begin with. I know it's a proposed budget, but there's a lot of things we may be able to do, and we just need to have a work session to discuss some of them. I'm also not comfortable with the carve outs, which I made that statement at the last meeting, because I don't think we had ample time to define what that safety carve out was intended to be versus what it wound up being. And there's quite a bit of money in that. I do realize the schools are going to be impacted, but we're already dedicated to a new school, and we're all in this thing. And I'm not comfortable where we're at yet until somebody says we're out of the woods and it's going to be months. And we can always come back and do a revised budget after the first quarter, when we know we're on sound ground, excuse me. And you can have hard data to go by, which is what you currently and traditionally always use to give us. So I realize you're on solid ground right now as well. But I think it would be prudent to do that.
And that's exactly why we're planning on having a couple of work sessions.
Correct.
To do exactly what you're talking about, to look at those things.
But now the other concern I had, and maybe I missed the boat on this one, my concern with advertising the tax rate as it is right now, perceptually by the public, it's going to look like we've already made our mind up and we're set at the 86 cents, which is exactly what we get hit with every time we put it out in the paper. It was my understanding, I thought we could put it off, knowing we don't have to finalize it. We have to have 30 days notice, we have to get it out to the public. But try to refine it some, if we could drop it, put that number out to the public, knowing that this is the best we think we can do. Say it's 83, 82, 84, whatever the case may be. Put that out there and let that be what you have the public hearing on, and that's what the majority of the public is going to see at that time. To me, it just makes more sense.
But I think the reason that we're having the public hearing tonight, and Mr. Whitten replied to me earlier today, is because back on March the 10th, we agreed to go ahead and advertise for the rate being at the 86. So that's the reason of the public hearing tonight. But in my heart, I know I'm not ready to set a rate tonight. And based on the discussions that we've had about having the extra work sessions and stuff like that, we need to get ourselves to one so that then you can advertise, if I'm correct, Mr. Drury, advertise those rates. And then we would then have another public hearing, and those would be the set rates that we would, if we approve based on the advertisement.
That is correct.
Right. So I think that's the reason for tonight.
Right.
But I agree, I'm not in a position to even set a rate or think about a rate, because again, for me, if we can work it out, I want to see it less than 86. I just don't know what the right number is.
Yeah, and I think it's a reasonable request to look at these things. The whole thought of the advertising, we have a public hearing, and that's all it is.
Right.
We're not taking any action. We merely opened it to the public hearing, so we could have that out of the way. So that's what we're doing tonight. All right.
Just over the past years, we were always told, Mr. Webb, and I know some of the citizens probably kind of read it wrong, but we had to advertise a rate. And we chose the 86 cents because that's where we are now, but it was always under the assumption, or I guess maybe a rule or something we have to go by. You advertise 86, you can always go down, but if something happened, we can't go up once we advertise it. So once you advertise 86, we can go as low as 79, 80, 81, wherever you choose. You just can't go up on the tax rate. And that had to be done at a certain time. And that's been the last 13 years we've advertised. And not to exceed what we put in the paper, but we'd always drop it.
Right, we just didn't want to delay the process.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying, I think it's the times have changed. And I think maybe we can change with the times to where when we get ready to have a public hearing, we've done what we think is the absolutely best, and we're all on the same page when we present it to the public and we're prepared to defend it. To turn around and, like I said, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but to turn around and put it out there now and say we have the public hearing, we get a lot of feedback, whatever case may be, and we find something, right? Okay, yeah, we can do less. And then we drop it. Well, if we could drop it then, we could have dropped it in the beginning, correct?
Not until you do these work sessions you
Well,
talked about.
that's my whole point. That's why, you know, I
Or-
can kind of want pushing these work sessions since December. You know, I know the timing was bad, but there's just different things out there. We just need to get ahead of the curve, in my opinion. I think it would put us all in a better position. It would sure take a load off of her, so we're not jerking her all over hell. Excuse me, I said hell, or whatever.
No, that's, I think everybody's on the same sheet of music.
Yeah.
We heard it. Ms. Waymack, comments, ma'am?
I think we need to talk some more about it, yes.
Thank you. So basically where we sit now, we can just close the public hearing.
Still,
Well, we're still gonna open.
Welcome to the public.
Yeah, we may have somebody who wants to speak.
Exactly what it is. So it is a public hearing tonight, so we'll open the public hearing for citizens to speak. Thank you.
Good evening again, Board, Ms. Waynick. You pretty much answered my question. It looks like you're going to wait, and that's what I'm going to come here to ask you to do. What I'm very disappointed that I did not hear is that staff is recommending the 86 cents. I got that. What the staff needs to say is, hey, at 86 cents, we are requesting the taxpayer pay an increased tax bill, because that's what will happen if you stay at 86 cents. The county does not need another $3 million. I have already shown in just my little bit where we're wasting, where the budget can be cut. What I did not bring up is, and I hope it's a Scrivener's error, $121,000 in awards. That's got to be an error in the sheet. But my point being is, there's a lot of waste, and we need the workshops to cut this waste before we ask the taxpayer to pay a bigger tax bill. And it looks like you're doing that. And again, Mr. Carmichael, I'm going to ask that you make the motion that I asked you to make to bring a decrement list back to the taxpayer so we can see what would happen if we went to a 5, 7, 8% cut. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that was Mr. Steele.
Oh, I didn't mention that?
You did not.
William Steele, County Line Road. You're tired of hearing him.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Is anybody else? It's a public hearing, so anyone that wants to speak for or against or in favor or against this public hearing, come forward now.
That's it. Just saying no.
Indication there's no one further, so we'll turn it over to the board to put this, just to take no action.
Mr. Chairman, where's Mr. Lee?
She's back there.
We are scheduled to, what is the date that we talked about that we were looking to get permission to advertise for these rates? Tentative date. Was that May the 20?
Tentative date was going to be April 28th, but it will probably depend on when we set our work sessions, which is a topic of discussion
Right.
for this evening.
And I'm just asking, Mr. Chairman, because I'm trying to figure out what date to table this to. So that's, because you, Mr. Wayne, we haven't got a date, right?
You
We
don't
don't have to-
officially have to take action at all.
We don't
Oh,
have to
okay,
take-
okay.
Yeah,
We don't have
when
to
you
table
set
this
your
to a date.
rates,
Let's just leave it alone.
when you
Yeah, then I'll
set
just
the
leave it alone.
actual
Thank
rates,
you.
That's,
Thank you.
that's when you'll have an opportunity to change the tax.
Okay,
Say
thank you,
if
ma'am.
so choose.
Thank you.
Okay, so there'll be no further action taken tonight on this public hearing.
Correct.
You understand, Ms. Waymack?
I understand, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then. That was the only public hearing we had, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we'll go back to T1, tabled item, proposed addition of the Prince George County personnel policy.
Yes, sir. Good evening again.
Good evening.
I'm here this evening. Again, this is Betsy Drury, Deputy County Administrator for Finance Director. I'm here this evening to talk about our non-travel food and beverage purchase policy number 330. This item was tabled on March 10th with direction to bring back some additional information this evening. The board received information at its February 25th work session and again at the March 10th board meeting. The policy addition, this will be a brand new policy, focuses on providing guidance and imposing limitations on the use of public fund when purchasing food and beverages when staff is not in a business travel status. At your March 10th meeting, some board members requested some average per person spending to be examined for our community events, our citizen and advisory groups, boards and commissions, as well as the Board of Supervisors themselves, and Human Resources hosted employee and employee recognition events. Additionally, there was a concern expressed as to whether the $3 per person limit was too low for light refreshments. And then following the meeting, a few department heads asked about being able to host retirement receptions for folks that had a number of years of service with Prince George County. I collaborated with Ms. Hurt on making these revisions and gathering this information. And currently, retirees or prospective Prince George retirees who have a minimum of 10 years of service are brought to you for resolution recognition. So that's the measuring stick we put in for being allowed to host a reception. I provided you with a sampling of community events, boards and commission meetings, and HR events to give you some per person expenditure information, and that was provided to you in attachment A. You can see community events range from 96 cents per person upwards to about $18, depending on the type of event. I provided at the bottom of the sheet the GSA limitations, the government federal limitations in Prince George County, because typically we would use services in or around this area. Breakfast per diem is $13, lunch is $14, and dinner is $23. Then I provided attachment A, page 2, the per person expenditures for some boards and commissions. The Parks and Rec Advisory Board was on average $4.40 per person. The Fire and EMS Advisory Board, which is typically held at dinner time, was $11.35. And the Board of Supervisors per person amount ranged anywhere from $8 to $16, depending on what was ordered. Visit from another locality, we hosted one in recent years, and that was on average $16.20 for approximately 25 attendees. The last page of that attachment provides HR hosted events, and the board can see that those, again, those meet and greets, Patriots Day, the Youth Workforce Academy, what those average per person amounts were, as well as for our annual Appreciation Day picnic luncheon, our coworker week and chili cook-off, Bring Your Child to Work Day, wellness fairs. We typically seek sponsors with those, so we didn't have definitive information. And then our annual service awards and holiday dinner. Then we, again, staff or a couple department heads asked about the ability to do a retirement reception. And we were suggesting a $5 limit on that. The policy is is in your packet as well, behind attachment A. And we've noted in red the changes that we made since we last brought this to you on March 10th. Under 330.3, page 2, we struck the information on light refreshments, the $3, and moved that disaster preparedness workshop, formerly Survivor Day, to the $5 per attendee. I don't believe we actually spend anything on that event right now. I believe CERT provides the
We've always had donations for that.
Right. And again, we encourage staff and department heads to solicit donations to the extent possible to mitigate or even remove our taxpayer contribution. We also added some language that at times the cost of venue and wait staff is built into that food cost, but in the event that is included, we will ask the caterer to remove that, so we will have an actual food expenditure. Citizens and advisory groups, boards and commission. We've replaced refreshments with the GSA limitation for those meetings. And for your board meetings, again, in the same vein, a meal may be served when you have a closed session that immediately precedes your normal meeting at the GSA limit. Can I answer questions before we move on? Okay. On page 4 of the proposed policy, we have changed in 330.9 the refreshment amount to $5. And if the meeting time extends through a meal, to adhere to the GSA limitation. In the final section, 330.12, we moved Patriots Day down to the $5. We moved the Youth Workforce Academy reception down to the $5 as well. Mrs. Hurt felt confident that for those meet and greets and the department head introductory receptions that she could stick with the $3 limit based on her per person expenditures in the past. We moved the annual Employee Appreciation Day picnic down to the GSA limit. And we added the retirement reception for those with 10 or more years of service to the $5 limit area. And in error, we added the Bring Your Child to Work Day to both the $5 and the GSA. We would like to strike it from the GSA catered event. It should be in the $5. That was my error. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Questions?
One thing that's written in here, Mr. I see gratuity is already included. The only thing that's excluded is the venue and the wait.
The wait staff, if we have wait staff, and there would only be 1 or 2 events probably that would apply.
Just a quick question. Has there been anything presented to whether department heads or whomever that they try to do things where it's, I call it like potluck, where each person, I would think maybe like for a retirement thing that's related to a particular department. I think it's really much more personable if everybody was to chip in and bring something. Do they still have that option
Certainly.
to do that
Absolutely.
instead of going down the GSA route?
Absolutely, and if I were to host something in my department, I probably would do that. One of the department heads that approached Corey and I is male heavy. In fact, it's male exclusive male. So again, that is a challenge for that particular department. That was a sheriff's.
Microwaves work.
I know, but
But it also states in here too, to try best possible to work around not having a working, so to speak, for lack of a better way to phrase it.
yes, sir. Schedule meetings around that, right? And I know there have been retirement events where it has been completely potluck.
Yeah, because I'm more driven as the events that we hold that directly related to the public or affect the public. Like when we have the dedications for the traffic circle for fallen soldier or something. That's to me on a different scale than, say internal, within this building. So that's it, sir.
I can see a whole lot of potluck or oftentimes you can go to someone and that they'll donate a portion of the meal,
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the work y'all put into it. Your department and everyone else, this is more reality and more doable. And I believe in a lot of these events, you're gonna have, as Mr. Brown said, potluck type events where everybody donates and comes forward with some help to make it exciting for the participants. So thank you for coming back with this.
Ms. Waymack, you have a comment, ma'am?
Thank you very much, Ms. George. This is well done.
You're very welcome.
All right. Ms. Webb.
Mr. Reed, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. If you can't answer this, just say it. Based on what we were spending and based on this, if this is gonna be a new benchmark, do you have any idea what % of improvement it would be?
Not off the top of my head, Mr. Will.
That was a loaded question. It
Yes,
just, sometimes with new improvements, if you're setting a new benchmark, you gotta know where you came from.
The proposed budget already included reductions in each department's food budget. I believe they were cut by at least 50% of the FY '20 budget. So the proposed budget already included some reductions based on the upcoming policy.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Webb, I would also follow up to that. You have listed the events. Those events are going to be reviewed. We may not have many of those that are included in the document. It just depends on how we move forward.
All right.
You never know how many retirements you'll have and such.
That's correct.
And with the pandemic, there might be some upcoming events that we are certainly going to have to postpone
That's right.
or eliminate.
But just because they're in here doesn't mean they're going to happen.
Well, I understand. I just, the data, I'm just looking at the numbers.
Other questions from Mr. Rory?
No, sir.
Comments?
Thank you.
Anybody have entertain a motion to pass this resolution?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Carmichael?
Nope.
Mr. Waymack, Ms. Waymack?
No comment.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack.
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, T2, amend the code of the county of Prince George to modify the requirements related to payment of utility connection and user fees.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Board, Mr. Ashcraft, Mr. Wood. At our March 10th Board of Supervisors meeting, we held a public hearing to discuss modifying the ordinance to address construction of new water lines and sewer lines along existing homes. And right now, the current ordinance requires those homes to pay a connection fee to connect to those new water and sewer lines that are newly constructed. At that public hearing, we were requesting that we modify the ordinance to relieve those property owners from having to pay those connection fees. And upon the close of the public hearing, there were some concerns about the language that was in that revised ordinance. We're coming back today to present to you the new language. And in this new language, the biggest concern was what did no longer adequate refer to. So we have modified the language a little bit to remove no longer adequate. We are now saying that it's no longer able to serve the premises in accordance with federal, state, and local requirements. So essentially what we're saying is that when there's an inspection done on your septic system or your well, and it's determined that it's no longer viable to serve the premises, at that point, it would be determined you would have to connect to the public system.
Correct.
We've also added language that there had been a prior approved reserve system. I want to pull up some of the language here. If you had a prior approved reserve system, meaning if your septic system includes a drain field that's reserved, in case of a failure, you're still allowed to use that reserve space. And once that system would fail, once reserves fail, then you would be required to connect. Same thing with the well system. If you have another well already on the property that's capable of serving the home, and it's already been approved by the health department, then you're able to use it. So that's the intent of this ordinance, was the intent before, but this does clarify that significantly so that any property owner, as they read this, would understand if they have a reserve system, they can connect to it. But at some point, if it is not capable of serving their premises, then they would be required to connect.
Mr. Chairman, may I, while he's on this topic?
Sir.
Your comment that you made about the well, if you already have a well on your property that can serve your residents, you can tap into it. Can you drill a new well if you have a space on your property?
You cannot drill a new well. If you have one already available that's been priorly approved by the health department, then you would be allowed to connect, to utilize that well. If you don't have an existing well, then you have to connect to the public well.
And I believe the last time we had the conversation, somebody had asked, what if I have another place on my property that I could put in a new well? Septic system's fine, I can put in a new well and get another 15, 20 years off of it. Why can't I do that without being forced to hook up to this bi-monthly payment and the connection fees? So you're saying there's a law or rule saying you can't do it, or is that a local?
That's local. What we're saying based on this ordinance, currently, at any time there's any public sewer or public water available, the first thing the health department will do is it available? If it is, they're required to connect. That's based on our ordinance. This similar situation, if they have this existing home, or put a new line, new water or sewer line through, in front of their property, current ordinance requires them to connect. Or at least pay the connection fee, excuse me, they don't have to physically connect. We're relieving them of that. And it only if, until then, the time where their system is no longer able to serve. If they don't have another well, a second well already drilled, they would be required, once the first well is no longer able to serve the premise, to connect to that public system. Whether or not they have the ability, because the idea would be, once they go back to the health department, they would have to get their approval. And the first thing you're going to see is, okay, public water is now available.
And they're not gonna.
And they're not going to approve it per our ordinance.
But see, I think, to me, that's one thing. If they go back to get another well done and the health department denies them, then to me, they should be then required. But, you know, I'm kind of on board with you. If I have enough land to where my well, something happened there. If I have the space to be able to drill another well and use my property, to me, I should be able to do that.
And you said the health department's gonna deny you a permit to drill one at this point due to our ordinance to which written. Something separate from this, right?
No, it's separate from this, yes, but our ordinance does require, if it's available, you have to.
Because I mean, like if you had a backup drain field and let's say my well is in the back, my current drain field is in the front. Now my backup could be a portion of the back. But if my well dies, I can't put another well in the back because it would be too close to my drain field. But if I had some space on the side of my house that was away from both the original and the backup field, that I could do that, why shouldn't I be allowed to do that? I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, that's everybody's question.
Yeah, and
Especially the farmers with 100, 200 acres, like they'll drill one tomorrow.
if I may, even new developments are going to ask for that same thing. A new house, they have tons of land, they're going to ask for that same request. But if public utilities are available, they're still required to connect. So if we modify the ordinance to address existing homes along new construction, we have to word it very, very carefully to make sure that new homes along existing pipelines are still required to connect. Because if we don't, at some point, you know, the utility needs new customers
In order to pay for it.
in order to pay for this. So at some point, we're going to run out of money if we don't get new customers. We have to be able to sustain ourselves and not to be self-supporting.
We're talking about individual homes here, so not a subdivision.
Correct, but we still have a lot of new homes are being built along existing pipelines that aren't in the subdivision. Because we do have pipelines that have been stretched out throughout the county along certain spaces that aren't part of an expansion for a new subdivision.
I guess the sticky widget comes in, if you do the math on the cost, what it would cost you to date it, just say a deep well, that's what I got. Deep well, plus to run the pipe and the hookup, what it would cost you for a connection fee and having good water for indefinitely, hooking up their system. That's a situation we discussed and how we really got to some of this to start with, was back with the one off Jefferson Park, where he was way, way off the route. And it was more cost effective for him to put his own well in than it would have been to run the water from Jefferson Park all the way back to his house. It's not cheap to put a well in, depending on whether you want shallow or deep, and that's if they can find it. I know a couple people now trying to dig them, and they've missed it twice so far, and they haven't found water yet, so. Which y'all's flavor? I mean, I can see it either way. The health department still got to approve it, but based on our ordinance, they're not going to approve it unless we make a change.
And I think,
I hate to get into exceptions.
Well, I do too, but
I mean, we're all looking at, you want public water and sewer anytime you get an opportunity to run that throughout the county. We've got to support the utility department and try to get as many people hooked up to it in order to continue the growth of this water and sewer lines that they're putting throughout the county. But it's just one of those things you have a hard time adjusting sometimes.
And this is only applying to if you got water and sewer available. At my way, there is no water and sewer.
That's correct.
I've only got one well on my property and 2 drain fields, one used and one backup. So if I lost my well, I'd have to be afforded the opportunity to put another well in, somebody got to get
Because
it.
there's nothing around, correct?
Yeah, because there's nothing around.
And I think the biggest thing comes down to people gonna look at cost. If I had to put in a second well, what is it gonna cost me, as you said earlier, Mr. Mayor? What is it gonna cost me to hook up to the county system versus,
6,000 or 7,000.
right, so if it's cheaper for me to drill, yeah, so if I'm putting in a shallow well and it's cheaper, somebody's gonna wanna go that route, before they go the other route. So, I mean, I understand both sides as well, but
But the way we have it worded to support our utilities department and its growth, we've already made that decision for them. Yeah, hook up,
Yes,
so it's
ma'am.
available with them.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Add one more remark. As we're moving forward into the future, we have a lot of construction projects on the horizon. And some of these projects are going to require grants. There's no doubt about that. We're going to need that to be able to fund some of these projects. Most of these grants and agencies are going to look at what are our policies, what's in our ordinance to determine whether or not we're going to be even qualifying for those grants. Are we going to be environmentally friendly by requiring people to hook up, especially on the sewer, but just as importantly on the groundwater as well, to leave the groundwater. Right now, the aquifer is not sustainable, so they're trying to get people off the ground and onto the public systems, specifically public systems that are on surface water. So they are looking at our ordinance and our policies, how are we doing that? And if we're not addressing that, they're gonna make us address that before they give us a grant. So I just keep that,
Very important.
as something to consider.
that's what we have here.
Yeah, we're already behind the curve now, so I'd say it's a heck of an improvement from what it originally
yeah,
was.
for sure.
Very good. I'm sorry, will you finish your presentation?
I am finished my presentation. I just had the draft language that was up here in the presentation. When you look at it, it's also in your packet. If you have any other questions on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Ms. Waymack, do you have any questions, ma'am?
No, I don't. I think I've heard enough. We've been over this time and time again. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We have a resolution, okay.
We have a motion to move that the Board of Supervisors approve the ordinance as revised to amend the code of Prince George County by amending sections 82-313 and 82-595, to modify the requirements related to the payment of utility connection and user fees.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second,
I have a motion and a second to amend the code of the county. Any discussion? Here now, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes,
Mr. Brown,
yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, so.
Thank you.
Go back to the order of business, the resolution to approve recommendation of FY 2021 health, dental, and vision insurance renewals with the recommended rates under number 11. Ms. Hurd. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Ashcraft, Mr. Whitten. Before you tonight, you do have the proposed dental, vision, and health insurance rates for FY '21. And it is my pleasure to bring this before you with a flat increase. So that's good news for all of us. The recommendation is to keep the premium structure as it is currently for both active employees and retirees for all three coverages, dental, vision, and health insurance. We have attached the rate sheets for your review. Health insurance renewal also includes 2 targeted wellness incentives for FY '21, which were both built into the FY '20 budget. And those are the Healthy Waste Incentive, targeting waste circumference measurements, and Health Map RX, which will target diabetes, high blood pressure, and cholesterol. We are requesting that the board continue to contribute to the health savings accounts for employees on the high deductible plan at the same levels as FY20. Those levels are $1,000 for employee only, $1,250 for employee plus one, meaning child or spouse, and $1,500 for employee children or family coverage. In addition, staff does recommend remaining combined with the school system for our health insurance. Staff is requesting that the board approve the following items this evening. One would be to renew with Delta Dental with no increase in employer or employer premiums. Renewing with Anthem Blueview Vision with no increase to the premiums. And to renew with Anthem for health insurance, continuing to offer the high deductible plan and Plan 30 point of service plan on a combined basis with the school, no employee or employer premium or HSA contribution increases. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions for Ms. Hart? Jason, Mr. Waymack, question?
No, no questions now.
We have a resolution in the packet, entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion, to have a second?
Second.
I second.
Had a motion, and Mr. Waymack second. Any further discussion? Hearing now, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. 8.4, resolution, budget amendment to appropriations $68,287 for social service public assistant. You can go to a box.
We are, yeah, good thing we have a big one down here. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, board members. Mrs. Boyer Douglas made me aware of a mid-year increase in state funding related to foster care services for FY20, the year we are currently in. An uptick in expenditures created additional state funding, and there is no local match. Our current adopted budget for these expenditures is $80,000. We will be receiving an additional $68,287, which revises the total budget in that particular line item to $148,287. Staff is asking that the board approve the increase in appropriation for state public assistance foster care funding in the amount of $68,287 with the revenue and expenditure line items included in the INA and in the resolution.
All right, this is just a pass-through,
It
basically.
is. Yes, sir. State funding.
All right, we have a motion to, did you hear all that, Ms. Waymack?
I did, thank you.
All right, we need a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
We have a motion, to have a second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution as presented. Any comments? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Drury. The next thing we have is appropriation of state
Snap.
SNAP.
I tried it earlier.
Different, be a difference.
Sometimes it will come out, it's just, all right.
State, not arbitrary.
All right.
Yes, sir. I believe at a September work session, I reviewed with the board some available investment proceed revenue and indicated that we would bring forth projects throughout the year to appropriate some of those interest proceeds that were not appropriated to a particular project. Mr. Purvis made us aware of an HVAC need for the Human Services Building. Those, of course, have been ongoing. This particular request was to replace the blower and fan section of the cooling tower, and our contracted vendor is Warwick Mechanical Group. The price that they provided was $38,917. Mr. Purvis requested that we add a contingency of $2,000 in the event that they find something additional when they when they open that particular tower up. So we are requesting an appropriation of $40,917 from SNAP investment proceeds for Series 2014 CD&E. We request that those remain in the CIP. We will create a new code for that human services cooling tower repair in the amount of $40,917. Mr. Purvis is interested in moving on this as quickly as he can so that the repair can be made to provide the building with cooling as the so I'm happy to answer any questions that I can answer.
I think the board's familiar with what the snaps are.
This money's gotta be used on similar like, systems, so it fits the criteria, so yeah.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack.
Yes,
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney.
Thank you.
A6, a resolution to award a contract for evaluation of underground sewer system. I think Mr. Fulton's going to present that to us.
Good evening once again.
Yes, sir.
As we continue to try to reduce our costs on the wastewater treatment facility, we need to continue to identify our areas of where our wastewater system is leaking. So we are proposing to do a CCTV study, and we're utilizing one of our annual service contracts, which is WW Associates, to provide this. They've recently just performed one for us for our wastewater treatment facility, or our pipelines that go into the South Central treatment plant. This one will be for the Hopewell treatment facility. That'll include the areas of Birch Estates, Fountain Ridge, Beechwood Manor, and River's Edge. This will allow us to find any type of deficiencies within our piping system to start plugging up the holes that allow any type of rainwater into or infiltration into our sewer system that we're eventually paying to have treated at the treatment plant. So this project will, again, be utilizing WW Associates in our annual services contract. Since it's in excess of $50,000, requires the board's approval to award the project. So we are recommending the award of the project to WW Associates for $97,450. There's a resolution in the board package for that, and the appropriate funding is available in our utility CIP fund to fund this project.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to clarify. This is not coming out of the fund balance, this is CIP
Coming out of
from
the
utilities.
utilities.
This is a twofold thing. One will be saving money and not wasting our treatment. And two, in the long run, it'll end up saving us money on the wastewater. These are all older systems, so.
Yes, sir. Birch Estates specifically is one of our oldest systems that we have out there. And we know we have a tremendous, just watching what we see going through our flow meters, what we're sending into Hopewell, we know that we have some issues.
Yes.
Some of it has been recently corrected with one of Ms. Walton's projects, but we know we got more to do.
Yes.
So it potentially save us money in the long run.
Right. It needs to be done anyhow.
Yep.
So, any other comments? Hearing none, entertain a motion to accept the resolution.
So moved.
A motion and a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack.
yes,
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Resolution to award of an A7 audited services, 51,000 county schools audit and 25,700 to affiliate entities. Mr. Curry.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and board members. The county is required annually to have a single audit, and the school board is a component unit of the county. A number of other affiliated organizations also piggyback on our auditing services contract. Our contract with our current auditor, Robinson Farmer Cox Associate, ended with the performance of our most recent audit, FY 2019. So we did issue a request for proposal on February 13th, which closed on March 12th. And of course, that's available on our website, which is linked to EVA, the Commonwealth's procurement platform. We received 4 proposals for auditing services, and a committee of county and school folks reviewed those proposals. It was myself, Monique Barnes, school finance director, as well as Lori Robertson, our accounting supervisor. Each committee member scored the proposal based on criteria that were listed in the RFP, and then we interviewed the top 2 firms. And we are recommending an award of contract to Robinson Farmer Cox, our current audit firm, to continue services. The amount for the county's auditing services will be $51,000, and the affiliated organizations vary in price depending on the complexity and scope of those annual audits. Grand total of $76,700, and each entity pays for its own audit. Milwaukee would pay for its own, the school division pays for the school PTA and booster club audits, as well as the school activity funds. The clerk does pay for his audit out of the general fund, as well as the Education Foundation would pay for its own audit. It is a 501c3. And then the Industrial Development Authority pays for its own audit. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions?
Mr. Drury,
Yes, sir.
this increase, well, you've got it written in here, I've read it, but anybody else that doesn't have this paperwork, I'm gonna say it. The $6,500 increase is basically work created by several recent and upcoming government accounting standard board.
Yes, yes, sir. The Governmental Accounting Standard Board, or GASB, as it's commonly referred to, issues pronouncements that do impact our footnote disclosure and in certain instances, how we prepare our financial statements. There were 2 very large pronouncements that had a drastic impact on our CAFR. The first related to other post-employment benefits, and our retirement footnote disclosure, I believe, went from about 3 pages to almost 25 pages. The other post-employment benefits required our auditors to assist us in calculating a value of the benefits that we are intrinsically offering employees that will continue post-retirement. So that was a great deal of work. They didn't charge us more during the engagement, but now based on the level of work that is required, they have increased their fee. And I think that would be true of any of the other firms that submitted proposals.
Good question.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Roy? If not, we have a resolution in the packet, and entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So move, Mr. Chairman, if there's no more discussion.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any more discussion or questions? Hearing now, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Laymack,
Yes.
Mr. Webb.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Thank you.
The next 4 items have been deleted. So we move to A12, resolution regarding the extension of the due dates for real estate taxes, personal property taxes, stormwater utility fees, and public services taxes.
These are in the handout.
Yeah, it's in the handout. Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you should have the additional items.
Did Ms. Waymack receive these, do you know?
Yes.
Yes,
she did.
Very good.
I did.
Thank you.
Yes, so pursuant to the Virginia Code, section 58.1-3916, the governing body can extend the tax deadlines for good cause up to 90 days. Currently, under section 74.1 of the county code, the first half of taxes for personal property are due June 5th, and the second half taxes for real estate are due June 5th as well. Pursuant to 38-82, stormwater utility charges are due on June 5th. That'd be the second half billing. And pursuant to section 78-99 of the county code, vehicle license fees are due June 5th. The proposal would be to extend the due date for the second half of real estate taxes, stormwater utility fees, and public service taxes, and extend the due date for personal property, mobile home, machinery and tools, and annual vehicle license taxes from June 5th, 2020 to June 26th, 2020. So the taxes would still be due within this fiscal year. The resolution has been provided to you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we actually talked about this at the work session.
We asked for all those, yeah. Because the other items covered, as far as the August,
Correct.
zero penalty and interest.
But I thought we had talked about, what about the penalty and interest piece to that?
That's in the other items.
That's in the other.
That's the ones listed right below.
Okay, all right, I just want to make,
The
okay.
other interest and penalties has to be handled by ordinance.
Yes,
We're actually extending the due date, has to be
I
handled by
got you.
resolution.
Yes, sir.
So that's
Yes,
why
sir.
it's.
I'm clear now. Yeah, yes.
Yes, sir. All right, so the resolution, we're talking about the extension.
Mhm.
So any other questions about the extension? Hearing none, entertain a motion to pass the resolution. So move, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion for the resolution.
Second.
A second by Mr. Brown. Any questions? Hearing no questions, we pass the resolution for the extension dates. Call the roll.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes. The next, we have an emergency ordinance to waive the penalty and interest until August the 31st, exactly what you were mentioning.
This is what we're talking about.
And for all real estate tax, personal property tax, and stormwater utility fees. Mr. Witt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Section 15.2-1427 of the Virginia Code gives authority to the board to adopt emergency ordinances without prior notice. The ordinance would be good for 60 days. We would need to re-adopt the ordinance within 60 days. So we do have a proposed public hearing date of May 26, 2020. Under the ordinance, basically, we would be waiving penalty and interest until August 31st. So the taxes that are now due June 26, 2020, the interest and penalty would actually be waived until August 31st, 2020. And this would be for real estate taxes, personal property taxes, and stormwater utility fees. And this is allowed under the same Virginia Code section that I referenced earlier, which is the 38.1-3916.
This is an emergency ordinance good for 60 days, correct?
That's correct. And then on the May 26, 2020 meeting, that's when we'll advertise public hearing. We'll have a public hearing at that point to re-adopt it.
Right.
Re-adopt this ordinance.
Everybody clear with that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because we don't have any functional authority over the treasury.
So just to restate for all those that may have a part hearing tonight, we've extended the date from June the 5th to the 26th. But you have until August the 31st that you can pay the taxes for those three categories without any penalty or interest until August 31st.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm
This
just saying
ordinance
that
would
so
ex-
everybody,
We'll merely have to take another action.
In
on
May.
it between.
yes, sir, yes,
Correct.
okay,
And then this ordinance will expire September 1st.
September 1st, gotcha.
Okay, all of this, being that we need a motion to pass this ordinance.
So move.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the ordinance that we just talked about. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Brown,
Yes,
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes?
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes. Okay, next we have an emergency ordinance to waive the penalties and interest for payments for water and wastewater services.
Yes, and the reason we separated all these ordinances is because there are different due dates. So
Yes.
that's why they combined them into one. This deals with water and wastewater services. This emergency ordinance would state for payments that are due May 15th, 2020, interest and penalty would be waived until July 15th, 2020. And for payments that are due June 15th, 2020, payments, penalty and interest would be waived until August 15th, 2020. So after those 2 dates, you would be responsible for paying the bill, and you would be accruing penalty and interest if you didn't pay the bill at that point. And we do bill bi-monthly. So
Right, and
that's-
it's two different cycles.
Exactly, there's billing cycle 1 and billing cycle 2.
Correct.
So that's why it's 2 different dates.
So,
This ordinance would be advertised for a public hearing on May 26, 2020. And this ordinance, if approved at that time, would only be effective until August 15th, and would expire on August 16th.
it says August 20th on here.
August, should be August
15th,
15th.
it says.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was just looking at the green sheet.
The ordinance does have the correct dates.
Correct, thank you, sir. All right, so entertain a motion to pass this emergency ordinance.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brown, thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Have a
I
motion?
second.
Have a motion and a second, Ms. Whitmire. Seconded. So any further discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I guess just as a sidelight to that, I believe I sent to you this afternoon, the State Corporation Commission's reaction that they're not allowing any customs to utility through June, I believe.
June 14th.
Right.
And of course, we wouldn't want to do that anyway, but now we.
FCC is also
Right,
reinforced it.
that's right.
Yes, sir. All right, A16 is discussion of school revenue sharing calculation.
We have one more.
15, sorry.
You got 15.
I'm sorry. Sure, I apologize. I'm trying to hurry here. Ordinance to waive penalties and interest until August the 20th for the meals taxes and transit occupation tax.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This emergency ordinance would handle the meals taxes and transient occupancy taxes, which are trust taxes, which are held in trust by the businesses or the county. And it would state, as long as, basically it extends it until August 20th. So as long as the meals taxes and transient taxes are paid by August 20th, there wouldn't be any penalty and interest. So this would only be for transient and meals taxes that are due between after April 20th. So if the transient or meals tax is required to be remitted on or between April 20th and August 20th, then all those taxes must be turned over before August 20th. Otherwise, there would be penalty and interest
Okay, they'll all be due on the 20th.
of August. So this ordinance also has an advertisement date for a public hearing on May 26th. And the ordinance, if approved at that point, would expire on August 21st, 2020.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Entertain a motion to pass this ordinance, emergency ordinance, to waive the penalties on meals taxes and transient occupants taxes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Right?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call the roll, please.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
All right. What I tried to skip to a minute ago was the discussion on the school revenue sharing calculation on the public safety carve-outs.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
that's all right, come on then. You come, if somebody's coming up to speak, come on, then I'll make my question.
Mr. Ray.
Good evening once again. We discussed at last week's budget work session, the need to fine tune or get board consensus on the items that are to be carved out, particularly for the public safety operating and capital. As the board is aware, the county currently calculates our local operating transfer to the school system based on 5 local tax streams: real estate tax, personal property, along with state PPTRA, our local sales tax, consumer utility taxes, and our motor vehicle license fees. The Board of Supervisors approved an amended school sharing calculation, or MOU, on August the 13th of 2019. And that version has not yet been adopted by both boards. The modified calculation approved by you on August 13th contains some carve-out provisions, revenue amounts that can be excluded from the school transfer, if you will. And staff discussed with the board at its December pre-budget work session using that modified calculation, and the board provided direction to use that modified calculation or that modified document. The carve-outs as approved in August were any additional resources or increases devoted to school capital expenditures, the amount of real estate tax devoted to fire apparatus replacements by your ordinance 74-4, and then additional resources devoted to public safety operations and capital projects. We didn't really get specific direction related to the public safety carve-outs. And at your April 9th work session, you provided or indicated that you'd be willing to walk through those carve-outs so that we would have some specific direction and would be able to prepare the budget document for adoption with what the majority of the board would like to see. So I have prepared a worksheet, and it is the multicolored worksheet. I don't know that we'll be able to do it interactively on the computer, but I can certainly mark your consensus if you're ready to provide it this evening on each of these line items.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I, not to cut across
Yes,
from Mr. Drury,
Yes,
I
sir.
apologize. This is one of the items that I feel we need to take to a work session. So
Yes.
we can have some
I
more
agree.
discussion around all these items.
Okay.
So we're not moving you
Okay.
from one pod to the other.
I was gonna ask that we do that for more clarification.
Okay, perhaps at the work session, the first work session you
I'd say-
set,
Yeah, I'd
so
say
that
put
way
it
we
number
can-
one priority, first work
Okay.
session we got, let's get this knocked out,
That's
then
fine.
we'll move on everything
but
else.
at least the board has an idea. And again, not necessarily for the FY21 budget, but just budgets in general. Even when we propose 22 and 23 to you, so that we'll have more clear direction on.
We can define it. We'll
Yeah,
put
because
some
I'd like
thoughts
to know
around it.
about the change of, why we're changing the carve-outs for this particular category.
Okay, and that's what we have work sessions and discussions for.
And Mr. Carmichael, I mentioned that the other week, I know you were on the phone.
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay, we didn't have an opportunity to really have some open, honest discussion on what that public safety meant. The apparatus in the school replacement, that's pretty straight up.
I agree.
The rest of the stuff, it can be a little sticky if you're not careful. And that wasn't the intent.
So,
That's our
we don't need to make any formal, that was just a discussion, so we don't need to make.
We
any
just asked Ms.
formal
Knox to make sure she puts it, number one, on the first work session that we agreed to tonight.
action. Talk about work sessions, that's the next thing on the item, on the agenda. And as you see,
I had a sheet in here for that too.
I think everybody, right, I think everybody's in accord with the work sessions. Nobody is nixed any of them. So,
Well, if we have a comment, we can make it,
yes,
if we could make it the latter part of the week, since all the yeses I see. Thursday night works well.
you're working for, you're looking for Wednesday or Thursday then?
Yeah, Mondays and Tuesdays are rough at the job place.
I have a problem with that.
Look, let's try Wednesday then, but the other that's two-part question. The other part of that is whatever we come up with, so we try to be efficient with this. She has to have time to take whatever information we give her, or request we give her, and turn it around, so we can see what it looks like when we start moving forward with everything else. So we're not overloading her, and you're gonna have to tell us.
One per week is fine, whatever dates you
So
can.
if you're looking for the 22nd and 29th, then, there are 2 Wednesdays, does that suit everybody?
Works for me.
Ms. Weeman, 22nd and 29th, good for you, ma'am.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
All right, and then would you say it was not on Thursday?
They're both
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
They're both Wednesdays. Mhm.
They're both Wednesdays,
At what time?
what time is a good time for everybody?
Alan,
6,
I can do
5 or 6, 5,
5 is
five,
fine.
let's do five.
Let's do 5 o'clock, give a little bit more
Sooner the
time.
better.
Yep. That's good for you, Mr. Ray.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Waymack?
Ms. Waymack, you do 5 o'clock?
That'll be good.
All right, so it'll be 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 22nd, and Wednesday, the 29th.
Okay.
And we'll have a board meeting in between that. When is our board meeting?
The 28th.
28.
So.
That should still work.
Yeah.
So that should still work.
That still work.
All right, thank you.
All right, that'll do it, thank you. All right, is there anything else to be brought before the board tonight? Anybody? Hearing nothing, I entertain a motion to adjourn until the 23rd, is that what we need? I mean,
22nd.
22nd? Is that work
Session at 5 p.m.
5 o'clock to 22nd, right here.
You have the motion, Mr. Chairman, to adjourn to the 22nd at 5 p.m.
Second.
Motion and a second, we got it. Any discussion? Hearing now, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mrs. Waymack,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Carmichael,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter.
Yes. Thank you all. Good night, Ms. Waymack.
Thank you.